Thank you very much. Good on you. That's great. Councillors, officers, we might make a start. Welcome to this ordinary council meeting of Wyndham City Council this Wednesday, 7th of November 2018. And in the spirit of reconciliation, before I begin this meeting, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which Wyndham is being built, the Kulin Nation people, and pay our respects to their elders, both past and present. Could you please stand for the opening prayer? We pray for guidance in the council's decision making to achieve the best outcome for the people of Wyndham. Please be seated. I would like to welcome members of the gallery, press, councillors and staff here tonight for this ordinary council meeting. I would also like to welcome some of the current participants of Wyndham's Building Blocks Community Leadership Program, who are sitting in the gallery here tonight to observe local democracy in action. So welcome. Wyndham's Building Blocks is a 13-week program that seeks to develop the leadership capacity of local residents. The program commenced as a pilot in 2014, and since that time, more than 300 locals have successfully completed the program, and many have gone on to do some great work in the community. As a council, we will continue to work with our residents to create a vibrant and resilient place to live and learn. And I understand that the group here tonight is attending the arts. Tonight who are attending are the arts and culture program participants. So welcome. And I believe that you're all currently learning key community leadership skills and theory, as well as exploring opportunities to further enhance and support council and the wider community in developing Wyndham's arts and culture. So thank you for devoting your time in working with us, and we wish you all the best for your community leadership journeys. Some of you may be aware that some of you may have seen the notices before, but for those of you who didn't, I would like to make you aware of the following. This meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the internet. The recording will be archived and made available on Council's website. Whilst all care has been taken to ensure that your privacy is maintained, please be aware that your presence may be recorded. Item 2 on the agenda is apologies and requests for leave of absence. Madam Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we have apologies noted for Councillor Walter Villagonzalo, Councillor Tony Hooper and Councillor Aaron Ann, who are on approved leave of absence. And Councillor Marcus has advised that she is withdrawing her leave of absence from the 12th of November to the 25th of November 2018 inclusive, which was approved at the ordinary council meeting on the 4th of September 2018.
Thank you, Madam CEO. So, councillors, the motion is that the council note 1, apologies are received for Councillors Villagonzalo, Hooper and Arn, who are on leave of absence, and also Councillor Marcus, who has been mentioned, withdrawn a leave of absence. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Barlow. Seconder? Councillor Shaw. Discussion, councillors? No discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 3, declaration by councillors of disclosure of conflict of interest, conflicting personal interest in any item on the agenda. Councillors, does anyone have any? Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a conflict of interest on item 6.4.1, planning permit application, installation of additional 10 electronic gaming machines, building and building works, alteration of liquor licensing gaming areas, due to my son working in a neighbouring venue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Item 4 is a confirmation of minutes of the previous meeting, and the motion reads that the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on Tuesday, 2nd October 2018, as prepared and circulated, be confirmed, and the special council meeting held on Tuesday, 23rd of October 2018, as prepared and circulated, be confirmed. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gibbons, seconder, please. Councillor Shaw. Discussion, councillors? No discussion, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 5, deputations and presentations, we have nil. Item 6, officers' reports, 6.1, nil. 6.2, item 6.2.1, draft learning community strategy 2018 to 2023. The report commences on page 8. The recommendation is on page 8. An attachment put in a separate document, pages 3 to 45. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gilligan, seconder. Councillor Shaw. Discussion, councillors. Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. This particular strategy, in my view, is yet another example of us getting things done. If you look at this particular strategy, we're looking at investing in another number of areas, including focusing on the life stages across our community from early years right through to seniors, considering investment and making sure that people are ready for the future when it comes to new skills and new ways of learning, embracing the diversity that exists in our Wyndham community and incorporating programs such as the Building Blocks program, where we have participants here tonight, as part of the ongoing investment that we seek to make over the course of this 5-year strategy. I want to begin by thanking some people that have been working on this with me for the last 6 months. To Sandra McKechnie, to Jenny Barrera, a well-known name, to Diane Tabar, Rhonda Rathjen, and most importantly to the consultant Bernadette O'Connor, who has worked very diligently in engaging with a wide variety of stakeholders to bring this together. This plan, this strategy, is very broad in nature for a very important reason. It provides the flexibility for our steering committee, alongside our councillors, to look and focus on the key issues of the time that may exist, depending on what government of the day is in office, to what resources that we have on the ground. It incorporates an important measuring template, which enables us to be able to consider the progress that we're in, that was fundamentally different to the 2014, something kind of the evaluation that we had with the last strategy, about making sure that we have measurable outcomes, deliverables, to show that we're able to keep this strategy moving. So this is an important investment in our city. This will deliver a wide variety of events and projects as outlined in this very detailed document. I encourage the public to obviously engage in the consultation process. There's always more that can be done. There's certainly always opinions that can be issued as well, particularly in providing more ideas on how we can strengthen this particular strategy. But overall, I'm excited by what we can do with this strategy, the projects that we can commence once we finalise this strategy, and simply get on with delivering important educational outcomes in the City of Wyndham. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gillian. Councillors, any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I am a supporter of our community consultation process that sees strategies such as this one go out to the public for their commentary and input prior to being adopted. I agree that learning is fundamental to the future well-being, prosperity and sense of belonging for the people of Wyndham. I feel that this is a vital step in ensuring that the views of the community remain at the forefront of what we do. I am pleased to see the draft Learning Community Strategy has alignment with our family-friendly charter principles and will assist in strengthening Wyndham's family-friendly status. Therefore, I will be supporting the recommendation for the release of the draft strategy for public consultation, as I am keen to hear feedback from residents. Like Councillor Gilligan, I would also like to commend the work of the officers and the Portfolio Committee in the development of this strategy, as it is evident just how much work has gone into its preparation. However, I do have some concerns in relation to the overall scope of the draft learning strategy, as I feel it is quite broad, and I would like to have seen something more targeted, focusing on Council's own areas of responsibility. As we know, learning occurs across all life stages, and Council provides direct service delivery to support this through departments such as our kindergartens and libraries. Other agencies and level of government carry a significant responsibility when it comes to learning, and my initial thinking is that our strategy should focus on Council's areas of responsibility rather than being all-encompassing. I also have some concerns which I've raised previously with some governance aspects of this strategy. For example, under section 5.2.2, it states that the advocacy for equity and quality in service provision, a couple of the examples given are the I Love Kinder and Schools for Wyndham campaigns, will fall under the lead responsibility of the Learning City Portfolio Committee, who will commission investigations and prioritise advocacy. I currently do not support... Thank you, Mr Mayor. I currently do not support this type of governance approach. Those decisions are for Council, not for a portfolio committee. The breadth of this draft strategy also means that the cost to deliver all outcomes may be significant, and a costing of delivering this strategy should be presented in February so Council can understand the financial implications of it. I think this is important for the community to consider this in the context of all the other work that we do. I do encourage residents to take part in the consultation process and provide us with their feedback, and I look forward to this coming back to us, incorporating the views of our residents and councillors. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. 6.2.2. Community Precinct Master Plans, Tarneet North and Truganina. The report commences on page 13 with recommendation on page 14, and the attachments are printed in a separate document, pages 46 to 113. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Barlow. Seconder, please. Councillor Gibbons. Discussion, councillors. Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I think the most important aspect of this whole report is on page 16, where it actually does break down the Tarneet North Master Plan and the Truganina Master Plan. And when you look at it, it includes not only a whole range of different sports, but it also includes informal multi-use oval, and it also includes the facilities to integrate for kindergartens, consulting rooms, a reception, a foyer. Now, this is something that we've already commenced doing in actually providing an integrated service. We're integrating services for the community as well as sports into the one central location, and I think that that's very important, because what happens is that you can go along to this area, you can go there and play all these variety of sports, but at the same time, during the week, you can drop off your 4-year-old and hopefully in the future the 3-year-olds to kinder, and there'll be consulting rooms, maybe maternal child health, and it's all located in the one site. Instead of having to drive to various points around near where you live, a lot of things are actually provided in one location. I think it's great. I believe that this is the way of the future. We've done it already. We did it originally, if I remember correctly, when the Grange Community Centre was rebuilt, and we moved the Hoppers Crossing Soccer Club onto that same site. That was at the initial stages. It was probably the first of its type that was done in this municipality. Since then, we're doing it in Williams Landing. We're doing it in a range of other places, and I think that the community, when these are completed, and there are, and this the recommendation is that we do go ahead and adopt these plans. I think the community will find that it not only will provide them everything that they need in this area, but it's all in one location.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillors, are there any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. 6.3, Policy and Advocacy. 6.3.1, Draft Accessibility Action Plan. The report commences on page 22 with a recommendation on page 22 and attachments printed in page 27 to 55. Councillor Slover, mover, please. Councillor Shaw. Councillor McElhaney. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I am also pleased to see this being released for community consultation. This is an important plan for our community. It sets out the strategies and actions that Council will undertake to improve access and inclusion of people with disability. Under the Victorian Disability Act 2006, all public bodies, including local government, must prepare a disability action plan. It has been in development for over 9 months and the subject of significant consultation, and the Community Disability Advisory Group has also played a key role in the development of the Accessibility Action Plan actions. This also falls under the Family City portfolio, which I chair. The action plan is named Accessibility, as it seeks to remove barriers to participation, promote inclusion, and achieve real changes in attitudes and practices that impact on people with a disability. It articulates the responsibilities and opportunities for Council to improve community access and inclusion of people living with disability. Council, with its many roles and broad reach, is uniquely placed to support the improved health, wellbeing and safety of our community. The impact of the NDIS rollout on Wyndham has been considered as part of the project development and has been reflected in the goals and actions of the Accessibility Action Plan. I'm also very pleased to see that on page 16 of this draft action plan, we will be identifying aspects of coastal access important to residents with a disability and prioritise actions to improve access and enjoyment of our coastal regions through the Coastal Management Strategy. I do hope that that includes beach disability access at Werribee South, something ward councillors have been trying to get on the agenda now for the last 18 months. Understanding we have different issues to take into consideration than some of the other municipalities that have implemented this. I encourage residents to take part in the consultation process and provide us with their feedback, and I look forward to this coming back to us incorporating the views of our residents. Thank
Sorry, Marcus. I think, sorry, I thought she was pointing to you. Beg your pardon.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd just like to say I look forward to the public consultation on this important document. We have 12%, an estimated 12% with people living in Wyndham with a disability. And that's not totally, I mean, while we estimate it, there is the coal community that we haven't got access to figures on that. So it could potentially be higher. There's a lot of actions in this plan, and I can say during briefing sessions that I hope to see this being monitored on a regular basis by councillors, because there is many actions in here, and it's really important that we embrace this document. So I look forward to it finally coming back to this council later in the year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any further discussion? Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to see this draft accessibility action plan, because it's something the city has needed for a long time. And I think Councillor's job in your role with this, you're very enthusiastic about it. I'm coming from the mental health side of it. The other night, I had a phone call at 7 o'clock at night with a mental health person. Where do I go at 7 o'clock at night to help somebody with mental health issues? My option was, as I'm the ambassador for the mental health, I had to ring the mental health issue. I could not get any help here in this city. So, and they're not going to get help and support through the NDIS. Once they reach 68 years of age, they don't go through the NDIS. So we do certainly have a lot of work to do through the mental health issue area. And I will work alongside Councillor Shaw to make sure that we get these services. I've had people in my family. We work with the committee and also the people here in our city. Together, we can make a very big difference, but it has to happen. And I'm really pleased to read all this, but we have to make sure that it can't just be a policy, it's got to be implemented. But I know that Councillor Shaw will push very hard on this, seeing it's through her chapter, and I look forward to going forward with it once this goes out to community consultation and we come back with all the ideas and then we move forward. It's not just to be a policy, it's to be acted upon. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillors, any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. I haven't gone to the right reply because, as previously, no one against. No, it's just in case someone thought I forgot. I actually remembered this time. Item 6.4, strategic and town planning. 6.4.1, planning permit application, installation of additional 10 electronic gaming machines. And I will mention building and works, alterations of liquor licence, gambling areas and reduction in car parking at the Tigers Clubhouse at 66 to 74 Old Geelong Road, Hoppers Crossing. Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you. I have a conflict.
Thank you. Councillors, the report commences on page 56 with a recommendation commencing on page 57. Attachments are printed in a separate document at pages 114 to 189. Can I have a mover, please?
Mr Mayor, I intend to put an alternate.
You're foreshadowing an alternate?
Yes.
Thank you. If this motion fails, I take it Councillor Gilligan?
Yes, that's
Thank
correct.
You.
Do you want me to read what it is?
There's no need.
Okay.
Now, can I have a mover, please? Yep. Councillor Shaw. Seconder, please. Councillor Barlow. Discussion, councillors.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. So I will be voting for this application tonight. However, I need to make it clear that I'm doing so in my capacity as the responsible planning authority. This means that as a council, we have a duty to assess an application on its planning merits in accordance with the Wyndham planning scheme. I do not support the increase in electronic gaming machines in our city, which is why I supported Council's objection to the Tigers Club application to the VCGLR for further licences. Unfortunately, we lost that fight and the licences have been approved. This is not something we can control. We are now in a position where we are assessing a planning application for the use of the building, not for whether there should be an increase in poker machines. If we were to use our power to vote against this application before us tonight, the applicant would take the matter to VCAT and ratepayers' funds would be used to defend Council's position, which I feel is irresponsible. This application meets the requirements under the planning scheme as highlighted by the officers, and that's what we are considering. In fact, it states the application has been considered against the relevant policies and it is considered that the proposal is appropriate for the site, and the report recommends that Council resolve the planning permit subject to conditions. I am a supporter of our gambling harm minimisation strategy, which is why I supported its adoption. However, I cannot vote against a compliant planning application that would see us most probably waste ratepayer funds at VCAT. Whilst my preference would be for there to be less gaming machines in our city, we have an obligation to make a decision on the merits of this application, which is why I'll be supporting the officer's recommendation tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, any speakers against this motion? Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. My views in relation to poker machines are very clear on the public record, but I do wish to dispute Councillor Shaw's point in relation to the Wyndham planning scheme. It is fair and reasonable to argue that it actually is not consistent with clause 22.03 of our planning scheme, so to suggest that it doesn't have relevance in relation to a discussion as a planning authority on adherence, and that is indeed the reason why I oppose the particular motion before us. Notwithstanding the point around the significant losses that this city has, and accepting the point that Councillor Shaw has made around ultimately provision of poker responsibility, does in and of itself raise the question whether we are significantly in favour of reducing the impact of poker machines in our city. I believe by voting against the resolution, we are sending that very strong, powerful message. It is consistent with the provisions inside the planning scheme, in particular 22.03 of the plan scheme, but it also sends an important message to the community that we do not want to see more machines in this city. To take more of a role in supporting particularly the applicant around trying to reduce the overall need for poker machines in this city, but on the point of 22.03, I simply vote in favour of more poker machines in this city. In relation to the provision of the bistro itself, I have no issues with the element of that particular portion of the application, but I will be voting against this in terms of the clauses that I've outlined. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any speakers for this motion? Councillor Marcus.
I will be supporting the councillor's recommendation tonight because it is an application presented to council for the planning to extend the building. There is only one thing that I'm really unhappy about, is which will result in 8 car spaces being removed, but 3 additional spaces will be provided, but there is still a net loss of 5 spaces. We cannot continue to approve buildings with lack of car parking. Everywhere you go in this city that we are allowing this planning permit to go through with less car spaces. But apart from that, they've been given the 10 additional poker machines. I'm too against poker machines, but unfortunately they have been given the extra 10 by the panel. So I think I'm like Councillor Shaw, and I hear what Councillor Gilligan is saying. You know, it looks as though we're approving, but we're not really approving. We are saying that and we voted the last time not to allow it to happen, but they got through with their 10 poker machines. I think what we've got to worry about is what may be coming in the future, to make sure that we have a strong voice out there to disallow more poker machines into this city. But on this occasion, I think we have to go with the councillor's recommendation and vote for it.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillors, any other speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, this recommendation obviously states quite clearly that the additional, or the report states quite clearly that there's additional 10 electronic gaming machines have been for the club to make enough room for the 10 machines and to provide some additional facilities for members is quite clearly in the first paragraph on page 57. My issue is, look, the machines have been issued. If as the responsible planning authority we say no to this, and that is a decision, which means that the Tigers Club can take this to VCAT and they can argue with their. My experience has been in the past, and we've been fighting some of these battles for extra machines in different venues as far back as 1999, 2000, when I first got onto council. We've argued against more poker machines, and to be honest, I can't remember ever winning the argument. However, I must mention that we've reached the maximum number of machines allowable in the city of Wyndham. Now, that's no great shakes at the moment.
Order, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, that's not quite right. It's a partial cap.
It's a partial cap. But what happens is that under the state government's guidelines, you get poker machines depending on the number of people that you've got actually living in your area. And that's, to me, is what the next fight should be about. Because just because you've got more people moving in doesn't mean that you should just automatically allocate additional machines. Now, we can go to VCAT, and argue about this and pay the $10 or $20 or $30,000 for a planning lawyer to argue the case for us and lose, which is a lot of money of ratepayers' money. However, we should start to look at, because there are councils out there that have won the fight at VCAT for new premises opening up with poker machines. They have fought it at VCAT and won. So if a new organisation wants to come in with more machines later on, we've probably got a very strong chance of stopping those machines to come through. So to argue about 10 machines now and spend a lot of ratepayers' money on something that I think has got probably a 99% chance of being given by VCAT is just a waste of time and money. So I'm voting for it. And the machines will go in, and the people who want to play them, they'll play them. If there's 10 less machines there, they'll just go to any one of the other clubs to play and put their money in the machine. So I'll be voting for the recommendation it is, but I will sound a note of warning that our biggest problem is going to be coming up into the future, because the bigger we grow, the more machines they can pump into this municipality. And that is, when the new government comes in, is where our fight should go in actually changing the rules.
Please, Councillor Barlow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillors, any further speakers for the motion? Councillor Shaw, right of reply.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I just want to quickly sum up that. I just want to reinforce again, as part of this application, that as the responsible planning authority, we are in a position where we are assessing a planning application for the use of the building, not for whether there should be an increase in poker machines. This is not relevant to this application. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, all those in favour, I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 6.4.2, Planning Scheme Amendment C228 to 315 Boardwalk Boulevard, Point Cook. The report commences on page 68, the recommendations on page 69, attachments start on page 75. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Barlow, seconder, please. Councillor Gillian. Discussion, councillors? No discussion? Yes, Councillor McAloney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I note that this report recommends the commencement of a planning scheme amendment process to consider the rezoning of land at 315 Boardwalk Boulevard, Point Cook, from farming zone to general residential zone. The amendment process will enable council the opportunity to exhibit the amendment and to consider any submissions received from the community. My understanding, this is a 15-acre site surrounded by residential development, and the owner at the time, during early 2000, didn't participate in the rezoning of the land. That's why this piece of land is the way it is at the moment. I acknowledge that there is considerable population growth and transport infrastructure pressures faced in the Point Cook community, and the amendment process will need to be carefully considered for these matters. I look forward to the opportunity for our community to have a say on the proposed amendment, and I look forward to hearing what our community have to say about it as part of the future public exhibition process. For this reason, I will be supporting the officer's recommendation to commence this planning scheme amendment process. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? No further speakers are put at the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 6.4.3, planning permit application WYP 10450/17, use and development of the land for a primary school at 85 Point Cook Homestead Road, Point Cook. The report commences on page 83 with a recommendation on page 84. Attachments commence on page 97. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Barlow. Seconder, please. Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, discussion? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I've only got a couple of comments to make about this. I think it is important to put on the record that I think this council is very much aware, we are running a Schools to Wyndham campaign, of the need for schools in our area, the desperate need for schools in our area. However, this site is in the green wedge zone and is located outside of the urban growth boundary. But not only that, the proposal is very inconsistent, or is not consistent, with various state and local planning policies, the purpose of the green wedge zone and its associated green wedge management plan. And because of those reasons, unfortunately, I cannot support this tonight. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Shaw, I should have asked for. No, I should have asked. It's all good. All good. So we've had one against. Sorry, 1 for. Only one of those days. Any speakers against the motion? Any further speakers for the motion? Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I understand that this is the second application for a Christian college proposed to council for the establishment of a school in Wyndham's Green Wedge. The first application was refused by council in the chamber. I'm advised that the applicant for the school wrote to council officers requesting a decision on the application to be put on hold, while the applicant had further discussions with the Department of Defence to attempt to resolve their objection. Not long after this request, the applicant lodged an appeal to VCAT for failure to determine the application. It's important to understand, as a consequence of this decision, the applicant has therefore been taken out of council's hands. Council is not able to determine this application. Rather, the council's decision will inform council's position at the VCAT hearing. The demand for schools in Wyndham, as Councillor Shaw said, in the context of growth is widely recognised, and I certainly support the establishment of quality schools in Wyndham and a choice of schools being of paramount importance to our existing and future infrastructure. Wyndham, in fact, has a strong advocacy program, and it's been running for a number of months now, which calls for more schools and better planning for our community. In considering this application, it is also the role of council to consider whether the benefits of this school will bring to the community are weighed against other matters, including the suitability of this site for this use and the on and off-site amenity impacts. I recently received an email from a resident in regard to the council report before me, and I spent most of the afternoon reviewing this. My following response deals with these matters I believe are important in assessing the planning merit or otherwise of this application. The land is in Green Wedge Zone, which identifies an area as set out by non-urban development. Important to the site context is its proximity to the RAF Point Cook Base, Air Base, and aircraft flight paths.
1 minute, Councillor McElhaney.
Yep. The Department of Defence has objected to the application on the grounds of aviation safety. Public safety is, of course, a particular concern in relation to school use. The Council report summarises the various relevant planning policies for assessment of the proposal on site with the green wedge zones. Zones are applied to manage land use and development in accordance with strategic objectives for the land, and in the instance policy would encourage green wedges from intrusion of urban development. An existing state school is in the vicinity of this site, located in an urban zone that actively encourages schools. I note that the State Education Department is exempt from the needing a planning permit for a school. However, the department chose to build in an urban area and not in a green wedge area. I'm advised a retirement village or lifestyle village is located nearby in the green wedge zone. Planning permit WYP 2722/408 was issued in 2009 for a caravan park at 50 Saltwater Promenade, Point Cook. At the time the permit was being assessed, the Department of Defence were contacted but did not offer any comment. I've worked in the retirement village industry for a long time, and I know the difference between a retirement village and a caravan park. The permit that was issued, was issued allowed for a caravan park to be built on the site. Having considered the matters before me, I would love for the Lighthouse Christian College to be able to establish in Wyndham, but it must be in a suitable location. Accordingly, I can only support the officer's recommendation to refuse this application tonight.
Thank you, Councillor McElwaney. Councillors, any further discussion? Oh, sorry. Oh, where was I looking? Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. I will be supporting. I will not be supporting the school going into this green wedge zone. I think this is a very well written report. I think it's been covered in all aspects. Now we all know what the green wedge. I've worked on the green wedge for many years, and the green wedge, they do not support. It is not supported by the Werribee South Green Wedge Policy Management Plan, and strategic planning has concerns that if approved, the green wedge will be reduced and weakened. And when you go over to page 88, it's very interesting to see, you know, that the Victorian Public Transport have no objections, Melbourne Water, DELP, Vic Roads. But when you get down to the traffic engineering, they have many comments, and they are very concerned that a lot of the children that would be going to this Christian college would not be children coming from this area, so therefore there would be traffic congestion getting to and from the school. The new student bicycle park provided next to the shed is not connected to any existing path, and I think the other major part of this report is the fact that it's very close to the Point Cook RAF base, which has many flights and the RMIT train there. And I think the argument that the Point Cook Defence put up is a very valid one. It's not in a good area. We've had so many complaints from other areas with the planes flying over, and I don't think that's conducive to young children in a school. So well done to the planning officers for the report that they've written tonight, but it certainly is not a place in the green wedge to have this school.
Thank you, Councillor Marcus. Councillors, any further discussion? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 6.5, other reports. Hearing of submissions, proposed telecommunication facilities, notice of intention to lease at 238 Morris Road, Hoppers Crossing. Thought I did something wrong. And 1 to 5 Saltwater Promenade, Point Cook. The report commences on page 107 with recommendation on page 108. Attachments commence on page 111. Just before, councillors, I asked for a mover and a seconder. I'll just give you a little bit of information, background. This report relates to submissions about the proposed telecommunications facilities at 238 Morris Road, Hoppers Crossing, and 1 to 5 Saltwater Promenade, Point Cook. As part of the submission process, 2 submitters have requested to present their submission in accordance with Section 223 of the Local Government Act. These submitters are here this evening to make their presentations. Therefore, following the moving and seconding of this motion, I will seek a further motion and subsequent voting. I will seek a further motion to suspend standing orders to enable the speakers to be heard to present their submissions. So, councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor McElhaney, Councillor Gibbons. Discussion, councillors? Any discussion on this item before the presentations? No discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried.
Mr Mayor, I move that standing orders be suspended to allow people to do their presentations.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Seconder, please, Councillor Gibbons. Discussion, councillors? No discussion. I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried for suspension of standing orders. So during these presentations, the submitters will have 5 minutes to highlight the issues that they have raised in their submissions. There will be an opportunity for councillors to clarify any issues raised by the submitters after both speakers have been heard. Councillors, as detailed in the officer's report, a further report regarding these proposed telecommunication facilities will be made to council at a future council meeting. Tonight we are only hearing the 2 submissions and asking questions of clarification on their submissions. I would now like to invite Mr Andrew Knight to come forward and speak to his submission. And obviously Andrew is there, but...
Actually, if I may, is to ask my wife to speak on my behalf.
Yielding to a higher authority, that's pretty good. Yeah. Oh.
Yes, I do. And,
yep.
My wife is here as well.
Okay, so, and your name? Sandra? Please, thank you, Sandra. So, Sandra, you have 5 minutes.
Photos?
Yeah, well,
So I've got 2 and they can just go either direction.
Yep. Thank you. You may now commence.
Okay. Thank you, councillors. Firstly, we'd like to thank councillors for supporting the community in the past when you rejected the proposal for a telecommunications tower at Boynich Court, Hoppers Crossing, and in following through with your commitment to develop the 2017 Council Policy on Telecommunication Facilities. The proposal that is on the agenda tonight relates to a small piece of green space that is across the road from Boynich Court. We understand Stillmark are prepared to attempt to disguise the tower and antennas as a tree and to attempt to mitigate some of the visual impact. It's proposed the equipment outdoor unit will sit along the neighbouring fence line and an underground cable would connect the tower and the outdoor unit. It is proposed a mural will be painted on the outdoor unit. However, we as residents still have concerns and questions. What evidence is there that there is a need for this mobile phone tower? During the Asmus storm event, it was not mobile phone coverage that was the problem. The problem was that 000 could not handle the number of calls. Our discussions with local users and residents have not indicated they have a problem with mobile reception in this area of Hoppers Crossing. What evidence is there that this green space in a residential area and right up against housing, as you can see by the photos being circulated, particular photo number 1, is the best location for a 25-metre phone tower? Why can't the playing fields on Hogan Road be used? They are less than 800 metres away. There are already tall light towers there, and any telecommunications tower would be further away from houses. What other areas have been assessed? What about the Hoppers Drain area, which is also less than 800 metres away? What impact will there be on the limited green space tree coverage in Hoppers Crossing? The current Wyndham City Environment Sustainability Strategy indicates that you value nature and you look to conserving and improving natural values, rural areas and the urban environment. Under the urban ecology in the strategy, it states that Council aims for an urban habitat for fauna and flora and allowing community interaction with nature. You aim for 12% tree canopy covering the urban public open spaces, but currently this only sits at 9%. That is, we need no reduction in tree canopy and an increase in real tree canopy in hoppers. If Council were to lease, not only could this establish a precedent for encroaching on green spaces and buffer zones, but it raises other issues. An underground cable will connect the tower with the equipment unit. How will Council ensure the roots of these mature trees are not impacted? Presumably a crane will need to be used to erect the tower. How will Council ensure the tree canopy will not be disturbed? This is passive open space. What offsets, enhancements will occur? Will there be more local trees, bushes and grasses planted on this and nearby green spaces? Will there be a sealed path to replace the dirt track to the traffic lights?
1 minute, Sandra.
As per paragraph 4.7 of Council's own telecommunications policy, will Stillmark be required to undertake landscaping of land adjacent to the proposed leased area? And will the mural on the box camouflage rather than make it stand out, inviting graffiti? In conclusion, Council's November 2017 telecommunications facilities policy states that Council seeks to ensure that the installation and operation of such facilities do not detract from the local amenity nor lead to any detrimental environmental, social or economic effects on the local community. A tower of this height, so close to residential properties and on this green space, detracts from the neighbourhood amenity and potentially has detrimental effects on the local residents. Its value as open space will only increase as Wyndham grows. Please don't allow encroachments or small incremental incursions on our limited green spaces. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra, and for your support, Andrew. Councillors, do you have any questions of clarification of the presentation? No? Thank you very much for your presentation. Now I'd like to invite Steve Hardiman to come forward and speak to his submission. You're not ably assisted, Steve, you're doing it on your own? Okay, cool. Steve, you do have 5 minutes, and as I forgot to mention to Sandra, at 4 minutes I will give you a 1 minute reminder. So please commence.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, councillors. We're all pretty familiar with these sort of things, but first off, I'd like to say that when we saw the notice in the paper that residents on that side around the Morris Road site asked me to again assist in doing something about this tower, but also the other listings in the area, in the Wyndham area. There's a number of recreational venues in there. We go back to the CBS Global planning submission they put back in 2015 for Boynich Court. They mentioned about sporting grounds, community centres, and these were not an option to them because they were forming part of junior sporting activities or close to schools, kindergartens or playgroups within that area. The site at 238 Morris Road, again, as Sandra mentioned, there is very old native gum trees there. Now, back in September 12 in the Star Weekly, it was brought up about the council's tree register for tree protection. And I think these trees have been there. I built my house 33 years ago, and those trees were forming part of a cattle area on that side of the Morris Road when I moved in. So they're very, very old. The other thing is, at the council meeting on the 7th of February 2017, when the lease for Boynich Court was rejected, the council indicated that they would look at where telecommunication towers would go within the community. And I think a lot of these places falls into the category where you've got sporting events, close to schools, close to communities. If people want to build a house where a tower is already established there, have been in the paddock for years, that's their choice. But they also have a choice whether or not the tower gets pulled in after they've built the house or purchased their properties. In the article on page 3 of the Star Weekly back on August 15th, it was mentioned that 120 complaints from residents in the Point Cook area regarding telecommunications issues. At the census in 2016, Point Cook had a population of 49,929 people living in that area. 120 is a very, very minute thing. The Ombudsman should really look at where and how telecommunications companies are tower sharing or where their towers are going for the best possible outcome for residents. The tower that was proposed for Boynich Court had a radius of 2 kilometres in one direction, 1.5 in another, and 1 either side of the tower. It's not a very big radius. So our testing that we've done, there's an open drain that runs from Hogan's Road through around the back of Priestley Avenue, round through there. That is the area that is affected by lack of communications at the back of the properties. The tower that's proposed for 238 Morris Road isn't going to reach those spots. So it's not going to have any effect whatsoever. Most of the people that we spoke to, either with Telstra or with Optus, they had no issues with the telecommunications dropouts or anything like that. The other thing is, if they do occur issues with their reception and they need to dial 000, that is picked up by the first available tower, regardless of the carrier. The other thing was again brought up about the dust storm. That was a 000 issue, not a mobile phone issue. Again, the use of shopping centres for towers use, it's there, it's out of the way, it's not affecting properties, it's there. And people, at the moment, if you drive around and you look at the amount of towers that are sitting on top of shopping centres, and compared to the towers that are along Old Geelong Road, there is quite a large number on that. So that area should be more seriously looked at for use. The other thing is, again, I'm going to mention about a very large steel tower that's sitting down off Old Geelong Road there. It's got one small antenna sitting on it. That would have the capacity to maybe rectify the issues of mobile phone dropouts in the areas that are affected, not where these towers are going. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Councillors, any questions of Steve?
Got a question. No, there you go. One's a council officer.
Councillor Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Steve, you raised an issue. I just wanted to clarify it for me that the Ombudsman, I'm assuming you mean the Telecommunications Ombudsman, should determine where towers should be able to be placed. If the Telecommunication Ombudsman said that location is fine, would you accept it?
If they made a decision, we would have to accept that. We know for a fact that if it's rejected, the matter will be taken higher, and there's a fair chance we'll probably lose this one. But when you only get 120 complaints and there's 49,900 people registered in that area, it's really not a significant, huge number that really needs to be taken into concern.
Yeah. Could I just clarify further? Yeah, you mentioned Telecom and Optus. I'm unaware that anywhere in the report it actually, well, it does mention Vodafone. did you speak to Vodafone as to their dropout records in that area?
No, what we did, we spoke to residents and asked them who they were with, and the majority of people that came back to us said they were either with Telstra or Optus. We did not come across anyone that was with Vodafone.
Okay, that's interesting. All right.
Thank you. Councillor Shaw, you had a question?
Yeah, just a question of clarification for the council officers. I just want to confirm, I've actually been quickly looking at our telecommunications policy while we've been talking. Has the applicant provided evidence that they have investigated and exhausted alternative locations and solutions? I mean, it's obviously not, it's actually not in this report, because obviously we're hearing submissions, but I think it is going to be important. It is actually part of our policy and also our checklist.
We do, in the initial discussions with the telecommunications applicants, we do request some initial information. So some has been provided to us. It goes then through the assessment processes as part of this process, but there is a checklist that we work to, and the evidence of them having considered alternate options is part of that checklist.
Agreed, but have they provided that to council?
They have provided it, yes.
Okay, so extensive evidence or just some against other locations?
I mean, we can forward it to councillors as part of a further briefing on this, but there has been some initial information provided, yes.
Okay, yeah, that would be helpful, thank you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Thank you. That's it, Councillor Shaw? Yep.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Do I hear a hand? I'll see a hand, I should say. Councillor McElhaney.
I just want clarification, not from Steve necessarily, maybe from the officers. My understanding is that a new tower has been put on Wyndham Village. It may be an Optus tower. I think there's 2 down at the new Wyndham Village in the last 6 months. So I know this has been going on for a number of months. So since then, there has been put a tower. So would that affect communication?
Maybe it's one we can take on notice.
Yeah,
and
just
check
take
and
it on
see,
notice.
I'm not sure. All right, no further questions? Steve, thank you. All right, councillors, now we have heard from the submitters. I'd call for a motion to resume standing orders.
Mr Mayor, move a motion that we resume standing orders.
Councillor Gibbons. All right, discussion, councillors? No discussion, I put it to the vote. All those in favour of resuming standing orders? Against? The motion is carried. I now declare standing orders resumed. And just for the building blocks, people, the resumption of standing orders is the rules that we adhere to in our meeting procedure, and they don't allow for hearing submissions. Item 6.5.2, naming of new community centre in Wyndham Vale. Report commences on...
Sorry, are we voting on the resolution?
We already did, Councillor
I thought
Gilligan.
we voted to suspend standing orders.
No, we voted on the resolution, which was before we suspended standing orders. We voted for and against. That's okay. See, I do remember some things. But good idea to ask, Councillor Gilligan, because you never know, and my age I could forget. Now, where was I? Yeah. Oh, okay. Naming of new community centre in Wyndham Vale. The report commences on page 134 with a recommendation on page 135. There are no attachments. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor McElhaney. Seconder, Councillor Barlow. Discussion, councillors. Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to move the report for the 2015-18 funding core community subsidies allocated to the Wyndham Emergency Services, and further recommend that the
6.5.2.
Oh, sorry.
Naming of the
Naming of new community centre.
Oh, sorry.
Missed by that much.
Sorry.
I move
Yes,
it.
you're right.
Now, Councillor you did you wish to speak? Or any other councillor?
Yes.
You do? Well,
yeah, just briefly, thank you. Have you got a seconder?
We do, you.
No. Oh, okay. All right. So the mover and the seconder stand.
Councillor McElhaney moved.
Well, she
Councillor
moved, I
Barlow.
thought she may want to withdraw her moving if she was moving.
Oh, you thought you were actually on something else altogether. I beg your pardon.
That's why I thought That's why I
Yeah,
said
no, that's okay,
I would now
that's
move.
Boy.
I will now move it,
Clearly
Mr.
something
Mayor.
happened in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, I know. It's all your fault. You started it, but did we do the other thing?
It could be.
Okay,
It
so
could be a
can I
full
have
moon.
seconder, please? Someone, I mean, just for the fun of it, does someone else want a second?
This resolution.
The naming of the new community centre window.
Yeah, yes, thanks, councillor Gillingham. Oh, okay. Councillor Barlow,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
you're most welcome.
Look, I'm happy to move this motion so that we can get some feedback from our community. Just for those who don't know, my portfolio on council is the cultural diversity portfolio, and part of that is I co-chair the Wyndham Reconciliation Advisory Committee for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders living in the city of Wyndham. And we've done an awful lot of work on this. There was a lot of advocacy and working in actually getting up this community centre in Wyndham Vale, which also will be a place for people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds to come to. There's going to be kindergartens there for all members of the community. There's going to be meeting spaces for all members of the community. But it's being built and it centres around the culture of the members of the Kulin Nation, if I can pick all that out in as a combined group, because the city of Wyndham has the highest number of people of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander backgrounds. I believe there's around about 1,500 people that have been identified of that background. And the thing is, unlike certain other parts of Australia, the great majority come from all over. So people come from Queensland and down here to Victoria to work because, as we know, Victoria has been creating a very large number of jobs over the last few years. So people are coming from all over Australia to work here in Victoria, and that's the same with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So they come from all parts of Victoria, and a lot of them are settling here in Wyndham, which is wonderful. However, we now give them what they would traditionally call a meeting place. So it'll be an official meeting place, and the name that after a lot of consultation through the Indigenous people within the municipality and elsewhere is the name of Warrangul Durham. And the beauty about that is that having chosen that name, we can now go out for community consultation about it. Now, it took me a while to learn how to say Warrangul Durham. However, I can now say it without having to read it.
You can.
But it will come with practice. And look, and I was fortunate enough to go down to the city of Casey late last year, and they built I think it was about $100 million new council building, and they called it Bunjil Place. And Bunjil, if I remember the correct interpretation from our Aboriginal and the Kulin Nation, stands for eagle. And so they've called it Bunjil Place, and there's quite a lot of other Aboriginal names used, not only elsewhere, but also within the city of Wyndham. So I'm very happy to be able to send this out for consultation to endorse the proposed name. And, I look forward to the community centre being built.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillor, are there any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? There being no further speakers, I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. 6.5.3, Core Community Subsidies, Emergency Services Funding 2019 to 2022. The report commences on page 139 with a recommendation on page 140. There are nil attachments. Councillor, can I have a mover, please? Councillor McElhaney, seconder, please. Councillor Gibbons. Discussion, councillors. Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to move the report for the 2015-18 funding for core community subsidies allocated to the Wyndham Emergency Services, and further recommend the 2019 to 2022 support funding to assist in emergency management planning and building resilience. This funding will be used by our dedicated emergency services of men and women to manage risks to our community and the environment in the City of Wyndham. Emergency planning and building resilience is about prevention, preparedness, response and recovery. I personally take this very serious. It's a very important area, emergency management. And while there is an annual amount with the CPI index, I will be accepting the recommendation based on the premise that any new services that come into our growing community will be in line for funding, pro rata funding in the future, such as the Tarneet Fire Station that will be soon opening in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? No, excuse me, no further speakers. I put it to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry, Councillor Barlow?
No, sorry, I was just going to just say what a great job they're all doing. They deserve every cent.
They deserve, no, they do.
They deserve every cent they get. So not on the record.
Okay, so all those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Sorry, Councillor Barlow, didn't see your... Item 6.5.4, RDF Strategic Plan and Vision Review. The report commences on page 146 with a recommendation on page 147. Attachments commence on page 153. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Barlow, seconder, please. Councillor Shaw. Discussion, councillors. Councillor Barlow.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not going to pretend that I know all there is to know about the RDF and its strategic plan and vision review, because you, along with a couple of other councillors, and I can't remember who they are, but I think there's 3 of you on the committee.
We're constantly talking rubbish and get wasted.
Yes, I will take that on board. And you also, along with 2 council officers, recently went on a fact-finding trip to Europe, looking at waste to energy, and they came back with a very, very good report. And we have been working, I wouldn't say very closely, but I would say reasonably closely with the current state government in looking at the different ways of actually controlling the amount of rubbish and waste that's created by people, by Australians in general. And I think Councillor Marcus, who it falls under her portfolio, has said before on numerous occasions, and I think one of your favourite shows is War on Waste on the ABC, about just how much waste we actually create. And it appears, and only you, Mr. Mayor, and the report that was written, who went along to Europe on this, would be able to tell us the things that they're doing overseas that appear to be quite a number of years ahead of us in how they handle their waste. So I'm not going to go into it in any great detail because I think that we do need to review the strategic plan and the vision on this, because I take on board what's being said in page 151 of the report, that our RDF is extremely important to our bottom line financially. And up until possibly this year, we've had up to $15 million in operating surplus. But this year, due to no fault of our own, may I add, it may only be $8 million. So that's $7 million less that will go into Wyndham's capital works probably in the 1920 budget, and that's a great loss to the community. But as I said, it was out of our hands because we've lost some contracts that had to leave us and go elsewhere to dump their waste. But I look forward to this review, and I'm sure when it's finished, it'll give us a very positive way forward on how we should handle not only our waste, but the waste from other councils.
Thank you, Councillor Barlow. Councillors, any speakers against this motion? Any further speakers for it? Councillor Gilligan.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I think this is quite a significant recommendation when you consider the contents of it, but there's a couple of things that I want to touch on. The first one is, which was near the end of Councillor Barlow's comments, particularly around the strategic risks for us in the future. You have significant projects such as the Ballarat City Council development, Australian Paper in the Latrobe Valley, and really the potential for this industry in the future to be taken out of Wyndham's hands. And that is a $15 million net black hole for us each and every year around infrastructure funding. I've had a view that the money that we use, the surplus from the RDF for the purposes of infrastructure, doesn't actually set forward a future-proofing set of amount of capital that we can put forward for state and federal funding of projects, which a waste-to-energy plant could cost hundreds of millions of dollars. So I think that's something that we must look at. I think we must accept the inevitable reality of potentially considering fortnightly rubbish pickups. I know that will be a controversial issue that undoubtedly will come before this term of council, but we've got to talk about it because a number of councils have already implemented this, and it's something, for example, Bayside City Council has just passed, and I noticed recently, probably because we're close to a state election, neither major party wanted to touch it, but inevitably some councils have already shifted to that. If you look at rural councils, they're already doing fortnightly waste pickups. So again, that will reduce the aggregate waste into landfill, it reduces our profitability, it puts the strategic risk at the foresight of this council. And if we're going to see that in the future, then we've got to accept the reality that we're going to have some tough decisions to make, but more importantly, decisions that are out of our control. And this could be a real costly endeavour for us in 10 or 20 years, or it can be a real profitable one. But it comes down to the future planning that we do now, the bold decisions that we make, and making sure that we're ahead of the game. And that is why I support this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. Councillors, any further speakers for this motion? Councillor Marcus.
Thank you. As Councillor Barlow said, yes, this does fall under my portfolio. So I'm known around Wyndham as the litter lady. And I love going down to the RDF. Correct. And I love going down to the RDF, and I'm absolutely horrified what I see. The real issue is here is how we reduce our waste and litter, how we educate the community that we must do better, like if you've watched the War on Waste, terrific program. We work very hard in our portfolio, and I'm proud Officer Peter McKinnon is here with us, and we're looking at all aspects of how we're going to reduce the waste and litter. Did you know that 30% of the clothing you buy ends up in landfill? So this council were very productive, so we had an evening here to teach people how to reduce their waste and litter in the bins. And as Councillor Gilligan said, this will be a hot issue, and it will, because people have come to me and said, but I've got 4 to 6 kids, I can't have a smaller bin. Yes, everybody can have a smaller bin, because if you know how to reduce your litter, and we taught 10 families and they're down. I've got my waste down to 1 supermarket bag a week. So if I can do it, everyone can do it. And this is the only thing. Yes, we might lose $8 million a year, but for the good of our environment, we must reduce waste and litter. No other way to it. So think carefully when you buy your clothing. Buy good clothing that will last. And the only time you can't is if you put on weight. Yes. But we have to watch what we buy. We are going to look at plastic bottles. We're going to look at straws. We're going to look at a whole lot of issues within this city of how we can reduce. And if this council start and we can bring everybody on side with us, we will do it. And yes, I know we don't really want to lose the revenue of $8 million, but to the environment, when you see the amount of plastic bottles, balloons are in there too, that go into our waterways, and to see what's happening to our fish, to our platypus. And there was a great story on platypus this morning, how they take in, and they have all this depression going into their bodies every day. But we have to look to our habitat.
Antidepressants.
Yeah, antidepressants, sorry. Thank you, Councillor Gilligan. But we have to do something about it. So I look forward to implementing this policy here. But we can't do it by ourselves. We need to bring every resident on board with us. So thank you.
If we're going to make a joke, Councillor Marcus, I'd say that's the last straw.
No, well, it's not a joke to me.
I understand that. I think it's also, I beg your pardon. Any further speakers for this motion? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I actually wasn't going to speak on this motion. I think certainly Councillor Barlow has touched on some really important points, and Councillor Gilligan, around our revenue and what it brings to this, not only this council but this municipality, and how we actually reinvest that money is actually really important to our community. And I know sometimes we do cop a little bit of flack around the RDF. But I know we did start talking, I don't know really how we got onto those things, but fortnightly rubbish collections and reducing waste, which I completely agree with. But ask families in this community about trying to reduce waste or get, make the yellow bin a smaller bin. I think you would find that most people probably, there'd be a number of people that wouldn't support it, and certainly my position at this point in time is that we would not be supporting fortnightly rubbish collections. And whilst I'm happy to have discussions about it, it certainly would not be by my position. And also I think it would be important to hear also some families about things that we are doing to also try and reduce our waste. But unfortunately, if you are a family, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in a house, even if you're doing your best, that can be really difficult. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shaw. Councillors, is there any further speakers for the motion? Councillor King.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I further concur with Councillor Mayor Shaw. I certainly would not be supporting, while I accept we have to reduce waste, I certainly would not accept supporting any fortnightly bin removal, rubbish removal. I'm just putting it on the record, given it was brought up. No, unless there were full and frank consultation with the community, that is something that it really is important, and I think the community would have a say. And to bring it up today, I certainly would not be supporting anything without complete consultation with the community. And as Councillor Mayor Shaw said, there are a lot of families that would need a big bin. Thank you.
You're most welcome, Councillor McLean. Any further discussion, councillors? And I suppose it's before I call on a vote, I suppose for some clarity, we also, as our waste and litter strategy, have a 90% reduction by 2040. We also are quite cognizant of the fact that the money that comes out of the RDF goes straight into capital works. It doesn't go into the bottom line, but it's also a requirement of this council as a responsible owner of such a facility under the Local Government Act to add value to it. And the fact that we own the RDF, or on behalf of the residents, we are in a prime position to determine what actually happens to waste in this area. So I just thought I'd have I don't often say a great deal, but I just thought I'd put the 5 cents in there. Mindful of the fact that currently the tip takes in about 500,000 tonnes a year, and within the next 10 years that'll double to 1 million. And there's going to be many, many more waste and energy facilities that are needed. So anyway, digressing. Councillors, all those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 7, notices of motion. There are nil. Item 8, council seal. 8.1, awarding of contract C1964/18 Wyndham West Open Space Maintenance.
No, you missed one.
Did I miss one?
6.5.5.
That was me.
Look at that. They're both at the, see, I said, yeah, all right. I'm just checking you are sort of, yeah, cool. 6.5.5, Assembly of Councillors. The report commences on page 156 with a recommendation on page 156, attachments on page 157 to 162. Councillors, can I have a mover please? Councillor McElhaney and Councillor John Gibbons. Discussion, councillors? No discussion, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Good pick up, councillors. Item 7, notice of motion nil. Item 8, I said all that. The report commences on page 163. The recommendation is on page 164. Nil attachments. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor Gibbons. Seconder, Councillor Barlow. Discussion, councillors. No discussion. I'll put it. Is that a discussion? Yep. Councillor McElhaney.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will be supporting this recommendation. I note that the risk and reward contract, so there's incentives for good performance and there's penalties for bad performance, which is great. This contract will grow over time and it's estimated the term of the contract will be approximately 250%. This project has been incorporated into our existing budgets and I'm comfortable that a financial assessment has been undertaken during the tender process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Councillors, any discussion against this motion? Any further discussion for it? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. 8.2, awarding of contract C1994/18, construction of Truganina East Integrated Family Learning Centre. The report commences on page 169 with a recommendation on page 170. There are no attachments. Councillors, can I have a mover, please? Councillor John Gibbons and Councillor Kim McElhaney. Discussion, councillors? No discussion. I'll put it to...
Okay.
No discussion? Yes?
No, I'm
Yeah,
voting.
oh, you almost did.
No,
Yeah. No, it's all right. Yeah, are you?
I would just like to say it's disappointing that this has had to come back to council because they have declined due to omission in their original tender. And as a consequence, this is now going to cost this council another $659,000 plus GST. Thank you.
So noted. Thank you, Councillor McElhaney. Any further discussion, councillors? No further discussion. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Item 9, contract summary. There is nil. Item 10, questions with notice from the public gallery. Madam Acting CEO.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We have 4 questions this evening. So the first 2 questions I'll take together if that's okay. And the questions is from Zena Alias. Is Zena here tonight? Hi, Zena. So Zena's questions are in relation to arts and culture. So question 1 is, how does council ensure that its arts and cultural programs are accessible and inclusive of cultural diverse communities, including those who speak English as an additional language? And the second part of the question is also, how will council develop new audiences for arts and culture that is produced locally? And I would ask our Acting Director of City Life, David Semmons, to respond, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Council prioritises working with artists from different cultures and have developed some programs and projects that centre on culturally diverse arts and artists, and working with partners such as Multicultural Arts Victoria to improve access and inclusion in the cultural diversity space. What we are doing is reaching out to communities to actively invite them to create and collaborate with us on new art and cultural opportunities, and extending that to that invitation to their community networks. In relation to growing new audiences, there are a couple of key factors in growing new audiences for arts and culture, mainly motivation and interest in arts and culture, and the awareness of what's going on and what's available in the community. So what Council's doing is creating opportunities for local level at the local level to profile and support local artists in our program, and investing in many programs and promoting the local arts practice and participation, and will continue to do so in that particular space.
Thanks, David. And our other two questions are from Scott West. Is Scott here this evening? Scott's not here? Okay, so we'll respond to those questions in writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Acting CEO. Councillors, item 11 on the agenda is Councillor Delegates' reports. The report commences on page 175 with a recommendation on page 176. There are attachments, page 176 to 182. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor John Gibbons. Seconder, please. Councillor McElhaney. Discussion, councillors, to the delegates' reports before we move in second. Before we vote, I should say. Councillor McElhaney.
Look, I'll keep this brief. There was a couple of things that are happening in my portfolio. One of the comments that we were looking at the Mikey project, which was funded partly by a council grant, and last week it was announced that 175,000 for the Mikey project for homeless and children and youth that can't get to school. So that will further be handed out to another 15 schools in Wyndham to students impacted by homelessness or family violence. So I think that's a really good, and I'd just like to acknowledge the work of West Justice Dennis Snellthorpe, who's done an absolutely fantastic lobbying this, and Council Jenny McMahon's area in working with the grants to get funding for this. It is really making a difference to the kids that can't afford, that have to make a decision between, at a recent couch surfing announcement last year, was the difference between eating and buying a ticket to go to school. So, yep.
Cool.
So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
McElhaney, councillors, any other councillors wish to speak to their reports? No? Okay. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? The motion is carried. Urgent business, item 12, there is nil. Confidential business, item 13, there is nil. And I hereby declare my last meeting as Mayor closed at 8:29. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.